Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 420. This is a themed episode.
That's right. We did a couple of back-to-back update episodes where we dropped the current events happening in reselling, what we were doing reselling-wise. But this is one of our themed episodes. And on the themed episodes, we talk about a specific aspect of reselling. It could be shipping. It could be, packing. It could be sourcing. But today we're going to be talking about the direction that eBay is taking and how that's going to impact a lot of our listeners. Because we have listeners that kind of all over the place to sell different types of items. Some are really niched down. Some are more like how we sell, which are like everything store sellers. And we know, though, a lot of people are doing, especially if you're just starting out in reselling, you're going to garage sales, you're going to thrift stores, you're picking up items. So you kind of naturally become that everything store where you're just selling almost like a virtual garage sale. And so we're going to talk about how that's going to impact those specific resellers, but then also the resellers who are more niched down.
No, I agree. And catch our live, because in our live we talked about, basically the issues with the everything store. And so you can catch that. We're not going to get into all of that. But eBay has definitely, I would say, has changed dramatically in the last 4 years. And it's affected resellers. Some resellers have been thriving because of it. Other resellers have been trying to do the same old. I would put myself in the category of doing the same old, hoping for the same results, and they just haven't happened. And I always say, like, hey, if your sales are slow on eBay, if you're picking up the right items, the problem may be something else, right? But I would never go as far as blame eBay. I would say it's more of an issue of just not adapting, right? We've always been about adapting. Sometimes it's easier to adapt than others. And eBay, I definitely think they're just trying to stay viable, right? I've always said that, like, eBay is trying to make sure that they continue making money, they continue, doing well. And there's a lot of changes that are happening. So the first one, though, and this one we've talked about so much, but I think we need to address because we have a lot of new listeners. We have people that still are kind of like, okay, I don't understand what this means. So eBay has been pushing enthusiastic buyers for the last 2 years. I would say maybe even 3 years. And what does this mean? So eBay is not trying to catch everybody and get everybody on eBay, right? They're not out there putting commercials for everybody to come by. They're not saying, hey, we're the everything store. Hey, we have every used item that you ever want. If you even look at their commercials, right? Their commercials are like, hey, we sell auto parts. Hey, we sell vintage clothing. We sell vintage purses. It's never like we sell all these kind of things. Like I don't think there's a commercial that goes like, I was looking for this old toy that I had when I was growing up and I found it on eBay. Like, those commercials aren't being made, right? You would think those would be, right? Because when I think of eBay, that's what I think about, right? I think about getting that one of kind item that you've been looking for and you find it on eBay and you're able to buy it. I think that's a lot of what eBay was. I still think it's part of eBay, but I think that's very much changing. Right now, it seems to me that the direction eBay is moving into is, yeah, they want you to be able to sell that vintage stuff, but they want you to have a lot of that stuff because they want people to come back. They want repeat buyers. They don't want everything buyers, meaning that it's just the one random person trying to come in and buy. They're not trying to hook that person. They're trying to hook that person that, is trying to expand their vintage t-shirt collection. They're trying to expand their collectibles. They're trying to, rent an auto shop place and they want to keep going back for parts. That's what I think eBay is moving in that direction than just, hey, I'm just looking for this random thing. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, so eBay had a definition for enthusiastic buyers that I'm going to kind of just summarize, and it's probably slightly off the numbers. But the idea, and I look at it as almost a cop-out, right? The eBay, I don't think, has been growing. Now, in fact, I think the eBay user base in a lot of ways is shrinking. But they're saying that we have a small percentage of our eBay buyers. I can't remember what it was, like 6%, 4%. It's a small percentage of their eBay buyers that eBay is making the most money off of, because those are the people who, like you said, aren't coming in and buying one item here and there, but they spend a lot of money on eBay because they're into, a certain type, purses, or they're into collectible figures, or they're into, something that's very niche. And it makes sense. Like it's almost like I would look at it like this. Like, not that I'm promoting gambling, but you've got casinos that make a ton of money off people coming in and putting money into a slot machine and pulling the slot machine down. And then you got like the high rollers who go in and they're dropping $50,000, $100,000 on the table, and they're playing like high stakes poker, high stakes blackjack. And I kind of almost feel like eBay is realizing that nobody's coming into the casino anymore and just playing the slot machines like they used to, that they're not making enough money there, but they still have the high rollers in a sense coming in, spending a lot of money. And so what they're saying is, we are going to try and cater the experience to those buyers because that's where they're making their money. I think in the long term, it's a losing strategy. I think that, and again, this is just my opinion, but I think that it's almost their way of spinning the fact that they're not bringing in lots of people. Because I think it would be better to have 10 million people coming in spending, $20 a year on eBay than to be losing people and most people not spending money on eBay at all, and then only a small percentage spending a lot. So I think they should be trying to expand in both directions, but I think they're also being realistic and saying, well, we're having a hard time catching lots of new buyers who are maybe small time buyers, are not buying lots and lots of stuff. So how can we cater the experience for those who are still currently buying and keep this ship floating?
And it is interesting because their latest stat, it used to be that like 20% of their GMV was used items and the other 80% was new, where now it's like 80% of the listings that go up on eBay are new items, but 40% of their GMV is from used items. But with that all being said, their GMV continues to go down, right? There hasn't been a year where there's been like this outstanding 5% growth, even 3% growth in GMV. Maybe 1% growth, right? But it's constantly gone down, and the number of buyers has gone down, right? So not only are they, kind of saying, hey, we don't want to sell everything, or they do want to sell everything, but they don't want you to sell everything, right? They want people to go to you for a certain thing. They're also saying, hey, the buyer base that we have is even smaller, and so you have to make sure that you attract that buyer base and you keep that buyer base and you make them return buyers. I would say I've had even more return buyers now in this last year, and this is very anecdotal, this isn't data, than I've ever had before. And I think part of it is because of that direction that eBay is running into. Now, what does this mean on the practical side? Well, on the practical side, I would make the argument, and a lot of people have been saying this for a while, and I've kind of turned a blind eye to it because I don't want to hear it, because I kind of like going out to garage sales. I like going out, and doing a local buying out an estate, and then going home and going, wow, look at all this cool stuff I found. And then even this stuff here, it may not be a quick seller, but I should list it because I'm sure somebody will buy it, right? In the end, I think that's hurt me. I think, and I talk about that in the live, and I think it's hurt some sellers. Now, there are exceptions, right? We have people on our Discord that are everything sellers, and they're just killing it. Like they're selling dolls they're selling to like some kind of microwave, and they're selling, some pair of shoes. They're like selling all these kind of different things, and they're still making it. But I would make the argument that those people are probably working 2 to 3 times harder than those individuals that are just sourcing the same inventory, getting up early, listing all that inventory, shipping by the afternoon, and calling it a day, right? I one of the biggest examples I think about is Tekken Sports, right? Probably, or the number one used clothes seller on eBay. And Tekken Sports has always done the same thing, always sold the same stuff. Yeah, he has kind of ventured out and sold some other random, video games or something like that. But overall, he's known as having vintage clothing, right? And it has 200 to 300 listings a day and been shipping it out. And he's done that consistently. And I would say now, even though he's shutting down now, I would say other people that have stepped up and are kind of followed that lead are finding success because, again, eBay. And I'm not saying I know the algorithm, but it seems to me that as the CEO, Jamie Ione talks about wanting enthusiastic buyers, wanting repeat buyers, wanting to find those people, and they actually have that data that those people end up buying other things outside of that category. It would seem to me that based on that info, that you should be sourcing in some kind of niche, and that should be your main niche. And again,
I would say you could probably,
I would say as full time.
Yeah, I would say you could still be an everything store, I think you just have to be a little bit more cautious of the items you're picking up, right? When I think of an everything store, the way it used to be, and I referred to us, I use the analogy of almost like we're a garage sale type store, right? Because the items you can find for the most part in our eBay stores are items that you would find at a random garage sale, except for it's the best of the items, right? It's not like a garage sale with most of it being junk. However, the reality is what we kind of consider junk now used to be able to sell a lot easier on eBay, right? Not the junkiest of the junk, but things that were just random. But an everything store could still work if that store is picking up in the categories that are the most important. Now, going back to that idea of the algorithm, though, we can see that eBay is more likely to promote stores that are successful for bringing in repeat buyers. So a store that's selling, Magic the Gathering cards, and that's all they sell is Magic the Gathering cards. People are going to come in and potentially buy on their store every single month. They get paycheck, they're going on, they're looking for Magic the Gathering cards. They trust this store. It's got fast shipping. The cards always come in the condition they want. And so that store is probably going to rank a little higher than me if I pick up that same Magic the Gathering card that's selling for $120. Part of it is going to be that store is going to be more reputable than me if that's the only Magic the Gathering card I have listed in 500 or 1,000 items. So that plays a role, and I think the algorithm is probably pushing those stores, not just because of the credibility, but because they have those repeat buyers. And so not only do they have the benefit of having customers who are intentionally returning to them, but a new customer logging in for the first time trying to buy those items are probably going to find that store before they find your random, even if it's the same item that you have listed. But if you are picking up those items that those enthusiastic buyers are coming in for, whether it's dolls, because there are people who collect dolls, whether it's, repair items, if you're picking up the right items, I still think the right items will sell. You're just probably going to be fighting a little bit against the big fish, right? The ones that are the stores that are already kind of set and established and niche down. So I think you can still be successful as a miscellaneous store selling little bits of everything, as long as those items you're picking up are the items that enthusiastic buyers are purchasing.
Yeah, I was just, I was deeply thinking about this the other day because I was listing items, and one night I had a whole bunch of homeschool books that I had listed. Then the night before I had a bunch of like Thomas Train stuff. Then the night before I had some vintage hats. Like it was like I'm thinking like this is so scattered, right? Because the same person that is buying homeschool books isn't going to go like, you know what? I really need a vintage t-shirt or I need a vintage hat, right? That's not what they're looking for. And so I think eBay is catering to that more. And that kind of leads to the next thing here. I do believe that eBay is focusing more on stores and individual items. And the reason I say that is because you see that if, let's say you're on eBay and you're looking to buy stuff. Have you seen those new ads on top of everything? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's like, come to this eBay store, right? Mm-hmm. So think about like, what would get you to click, Mike, on an eBay store ad?
What would get me? I mean, if it's the items I'm wanting to buy.
Okay, but let's say like it doesn't. Let's say it's just an eBay store. Would you click on it? Meaning just some random stores on there.
I mean, probably not. I mean, I feel like the ads you get pushed are going to be in something you're already kind of searching for.
Okay, but
I'm not sure what you're fishing for here, Orlando.
Sorry. No, we talked about this in the Discord, how you can't avoid these. Like, these ads are all over the place now. Okay, and so whenever, especially when I'm like listing, right, I'm looking up, sell similar, and I'm finding a similar item. And sure enough, it shows me the item. And then on top of that, there's a banner, and that banner is for an eBay store. Now, unless that banner is in like a field that I care about, like I'm not going to click on it, right? Or let's say that banner comes up and it shows like a vintage hat, and then it shows a sewing machine, and then after the sewing machine, it shows like a Christmas blow mold, right? And has like these items, and I'm like, oh, I don't really care for that. But what if there's a store? And on that store, right, let's say you're looking for football jerseys and it shows you like 6 jerseys. It may not show the one you want, but you're like, this store has kind of what I'm looking for, so I'm going to click on that store, right? And I remember at the eBay ads event, they were very big on obviously doing promoted listings. But the other component was making sure that your categories were fixed in your eBay store. And the reason being, and I've had this happen, like yesterday, I had somebody buy 8 different Hot Wheel cars. Now, I don't know how they found them because I'm super disorganized in my store. Like some categories I fixed. I know on the Hot Wheels one, it's like under toys and like bookends is the other category. Some because I don't, you know, I'm listing, I'm done. But I remember eBay and the last 2 eBay ads events said, hey, make sure you have categories, because what happens is when we bring in these enthusiastic buyers onto your store, if you have your category set up, then they can not only find what they want, but then if they see it in a category and they click on the category and they see a plethora of other items, chances are you're going to convert more sales. And so my recommendation to people is, if you're brand new, have your store categories. I'm not talking about the eBay categories. I'm talking about the store categories. Set those store categories up now, right? And make them generic enough where you can catch a bunch of stuff. Don't just go, you know, Hot Wheels 2009 treasure hunt. Don't make that a category, but, you know, just a Hot Wheels category, right? Or if all you're selling is Hot Wheels, have one for Hot Wheels treasure hunt and have another for Hot Wheels red lines, another Hot Wheels whatever. So when people are looking for that, they're going to buy more. And I truly believe this. It's one of the things I've been trying to work on. I just, you know, I have so many random things. It's taking some time. But I do think eBay is going to start pushing stores more, because if they're looking for enthusiastic buyers, right, they want enthusiastic buyers to be aware of stores that have the items that they're going to continue repeating and buying. Does that make more sense now?
Yeah, and then one of the things that you can do too, and again, you would have to be niched down a little bit in order to do this, but you can still set it by category. When I buy books, for instance, on eBay, do you ever buy books on eBay, Orlando?
I have, yeah. I mean, I'm an Amazon kind of person when it comes to books, but yeah, I bought on eBay.
I buy books on eBay quite a bit, and one of the things, almost all of the big booksellers, and these aren't like small time people, like these are big booksellers,
like Latin people.
And same thing with like DVDs and that type of stuff, any type of media. A lot of times the stores will have set prices, so like things at like $4.99 and below, and things at like $6.99 and below, and they do sales where it's like buy 2 get 1 free, or, you know, buy 3 get this price off. And that's a very difficult thing to do for you as an individual seller if you got so many different items that don't really line up. But if you can have items that are more like a store, where it's like, hey, here's my like collectible, you know, Marvel stuff, and here is my stuff for My Little Pony, and here's my whatever categories you're selling in. If you could do something where, hey, buy 2 of these and get the third one, you know, free or at a cheaper price. I can't tell you how many times I've bought, or sometimes it's like buy 3 books, get the 4th one free. I'm going and I'm looking for one book, and I'm like, well, if I'm buying one book and it's only $5, I might as well buy 3 more and get a free one. I can see where that would kind of hook an enthusiastic buyer. There's so many times that I'm buying more books than I necessarily need to, because I get the 4th one free, or I get the 3rd one free. And so I can see where that would benefit, because then I'm shopping the store. And that's pretty much the only time I do that, is when I shop their store. There's been other times where I've bought collectibles, like I'm going to mention in our Hustle of the Week a little bit later in this podcast. I was picking up some like Whiz Kids collectibles, and I wanted to see what else this seller had, because his prices were decent. And so I found every other, and he had like 15 other listings for this product, different, you know, models and figures and stuff. And even though there wasn't a sale being run, I did look at this seller and his store specifically for these items. So that might be a benefit. If I would have clicked on his store and saw that he had nothing else that was related to those Whiz Kids items that I was looking for, I would have jumped off his store. So that is a benefit of being niched down, is you can potentially get people to spend more money on your store if you've got more similar items that people might be looking for. So I definitely see that as being a benefit, even if eBay isn't necessarily pushing stores, which I think they probably are. I think that just that nature of how we buy things would lend itself to niching down if you can.
No, I agree. For example, whenever I have an issue, like I have an item that's out of stock, or there's damage, or I'm trying to, just have the buyer be happy, I send a coupon for 20% off, my entire store. You know how many times that converts to something? Never. Why? Because, hey, they came to my store for that one thing. I don't have anything similar to that. Chances are, I mean, I might if it's a Hot Wheels or it's a duck decoy. I mean, I do have certain categories, but chances are they're not going to use that coupon, right? And again, why would you use a coupon, right? I enjoy coupons when I get them from a place that I can get more from, right? Not just, whether it be food, whether it be clothing, whether it be an oil change. I like coupons that allows me to get more of the same item or similar to that item. And I do believe eBay is moving in that direction where they're trying to create more of those opportunities for individuals to pick up more of those items. All right, hey, before we move on, so in case you haven't heard, the deadline for your tax extension if you're in California is October 15, and maybe you're a seller like me that, well, I did turn in all my stuff, but I'm going to have to amend my... But anyways, it is what it is. But the nice thing about it is I have my reseller Genie, so I didn't have to stress. I was able to import all my eBay fees, my shipping fees, my promoted listing fees. I was able to check my cost of goods and all that, and it was at a great price, right? And so if you haven't yet signed up for my reseller Genie, make sure to sign up. You get 15% off the first month. It is bookkeeping software made by resellers for resellers, and all you have to do is go to our link and use our code Pure Hustle, all in caps, and you'll get 15% off the first month. So make sure to go and do that. All right. So here's another thing I've been thinking about too. eBay has really been pushing like refurbished, or they've been pushing have you bought any car parts on eBay recently? Like you need something?
Yeah, I mean, I've bought car parts on eBay, and I've definitely bought like refurbished phones and technology on eBay as well.
Right, and they're definitely pushing that. And so my thoughts on that are, it's like you can still sell used electronics, but I do think it's going to get a little more difficult, right? Because if you're competing against someone that has a refurbished item and yours is just a used item, unless your price is substantially different, I think it may be a little bit of a struggle, right? That's a change. I could be wrong on that, but in my experience, those individuals that sell electronics and are doing really well, they either A, they have great competitive prices, or B, they sell refurbished. And I want to go back, before I move on with that, I want to go back to your point, Mike, about booksellers and so on. Whenever I go to an eBay ads event, or it's eBay Open, or if you ever see anybody that's recognized by eBay, like this last eBay Open, it is a rarity that you find somebody that's like, hey, I sell everything, right? Usually it's like, hey, it's like, let's say it's eBay Princess, right? And eBay Princess, all she sells is women's clothing, right? Or it's Hustlebee, all he sells is Nike shoes, right? Or it's, somebody who's a bookseller and all these sellers books. Very rare do you have somebody that goes, yeah, you know what? I sell Chuck E. Cheese plushies sometimes, and then sometimes I sell a Sonic the Hedgehog video game. Like, you don't see those. You don't see those people being highlighted by eBay. So my guess is if they're not being highlighted by eBay, that is not the direction eBay is going in. It doesn't mean that there's an opportunity. It doesn't mean that you can't still make it happen. It just, I think it's going to be a little more difficult to do that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, but going back to this idea of refurbished and collectible products, I do think eBay is definitely moving in that direction more. You see that with eBay's purchase of golden collectibles, right? Which I think is a win, because now if you have really something great, I'm hoping that eventually eBay will have some kind of relationship with PSA or somebody where you can just send it to them and they can just grade it. I know they did hold, they had the vault, and then they sold that vault to PSA and now it costs more. But I'm hoping over time it'll be even easier to sell collectibles. Now eBay has that program where you can scan cards really fast. It'll tell you its value very fast. So be aware of that, and take a look at all the lives. There is no lives of somebody selling used clothing. There is no live that eBay is hosting that somebody is selling, I don't know, ski jackets or anything. Like, Whatnot and eBay is very different when it comes to the lives, right? Whatnot, like you said, is the Wild West, right? eBay is keeping it very polished, is keeping it very like, hey, this is exactly what we're about. We're about collectibles. We're about sneakers. That's pretty much it. So be aware of that. Be aware of that, I honestly, I will be shocked, and, maybe somebody can clip this, if eBay ever allows all resellers to go live on the platform. I will be 1,000% shocked. They could have done it 2-3 years ago. They made the promises. Now you don't even hear about it. All they're saying is, hey, we're opening it up to other resellers. But what they mean is, hey, we're opening it up to, these, 6-figure sellers, or we're opening it up to these individuals with the social media presence. Generally, you don't hear like, hey, my name is, John, and I have 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I'm doing an eBay live. Like, you rarely see that happen. So be aware that, that when it's collectibles, take a look at what's hot, and also be aware that if you're going to sell used electronics, you might find a little bit of conflict with refurbished products.
Yeah, and I wonder, I know there's people who sell, like, I've used the analogy or the example in the past of like washing machine parts or dryer parts. And I know that some of those things to be refurbished, it has to go to the factory, but some factories in some places or I don't know, I might be speaking out of turn here, but I know that some people can get the credentials that they need in order to be an official refurbisher, right? So if you are like handy with electronics and you're like, I got certified, I took this online class or whatever, I did my testing, and now I can officially refurbish whatever Panasonic VCRs, whatever it is. If that's something you're able to source and refurbish, or maybe it's phones, or maybe it's something else, that might be something to look into. I'd be interested to know in the comments below if anybody that we have listening is like a licensed refurbisher. That would be really cool, because I think that is potentially a market that if you can get into, especially if you are niche down and you are like mechanically inclined, that might be something to consider as well.
No, I agree. Because I do think, again, we're all playing guessing games with the algorithm, but I do believe if eBay is putting this at the front of eBay Open, if they're pushing this from the CEO and a lot of other eBay execs, like, this is what eBay is going to want to do, right? This is the direction they want to move in. All right, hey, we should take a little break and talk about our hustle of the week. You want to do that?
Let's do it.
All right.
Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. All right. So our first hustle of the week, I don't see who this is.
Oh, I will let you know by the end of this. Oh, it's
all right. So Orlando will tell us who this hustle.
Sorry, my notes.
I'll just read it, and then you can tell us who it's from at the end. All right. So this person bought
it's from the Discord
candelabra from a thrift store for $250. Ooh, that's paying up. He listed it, and it was a French Directory period candelabra, mercury gilt 8 painted bronze from the 18th century. So sold it on eBay, and it sold for $1,250. That is insane. You got to know what you're doing. You could probably tell looking at a big candelabra that it's like quality, that it's not just cheap, IKEA, lamp or whatever. But man, to be willing to put $250 down, and I would imagine unless there was like a lot of like markings on it, you probably had to do a little bit of research to find out exactly all the information on it. So that's an incredible pickup and an incredible hustle. Who's it from, Orlando?
It was from Salad Sauce on the Discord.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, yeah, I know Salad Sauce, but here's the crazy thing. Salad Sauce, here's another, he hasn't sold yet, but, or I don't know. It's Salad Sauce. They picked up 460 manga books last night at a local library book sale for $1 each.
Ooh,
that is crazy. Like, think about that. $1 each for manga. And listen, manga on the low end, I would say $10 a piece. So let's say 460 times 10. That's some good money, right? We're talking about $4,600 out of $460 spent. That could be another hustle week. But yeah, Salad Sauce, again, like I said, this is counter to what we were saying earlier, but you can still make it as an everything store, right? Salad Sauce sold candelabra for good money, and now they're going to sell a lot of manga for good money. So nice work there, Salad Sauce from the Discord. All right, so this other hustle of the week comes from our email. If you have not emailed us ever, you should. It's at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. That's purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. And this comes from Don. It says, Don, what up, gentlemen? Just wanted to drop you guys a line and say I found your podcast a few months ago and have enjoyed what I have heard so far. Awesome to hear. Thanks so much. Make sure to leave a review, by the way, if you haven't yet. I enjoy your honesty and look forward to new episodes. I am a full-time thrifter from San Diego. I should have asked, like, do they mean thrifter like they like to find things, or thrifter like they go to thrift stores, right? I'm a full-time thrifter for San Diego, but luckily it's just a hobby for me that I look forward to doing every day. Recently, I purchased a fake Scotty Cameron putter at the swap meet, and I'd love to hear any stories you may have about buying a fake item, what it was, and how you dealt with it. For me, I had no idea there was a fake golf club market, so I chalked up the experience to a learning lesson. So before we get into his hustle of the week, what are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Buying fake stuff.
Yeah. What happens if you buy fake stuff? Like this person, Don went to the flea market, bought a Scotty Cameron. I wonder if he went to Kobe. That's the big swap meet out here in San Diego, or if he went to the Santee swap meet.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is really tough, especially if you don't know, right? Like, there's certain things that I feel like it's easier to spot. Like if you go to a swap meet or something like that, a garage sale, and they've got 100 spy glasses and all these, glasses that normally sell for $100 a piece, and they're selling them for $10. It's pretty easy to tell. But when it's something like that, it's tough. And I think you're right. I think it is kind of just a learning lesson. There's really not much you can do unless it's clear that vendor is selling purposely a bunch of fake stuff and selling it as if it's real. There might be some recourse you could take with that, but man, we've all done it. We've all bought fake stuff and or broken things. You think it works, and then you get it home and it doesn't. And yeah, sometimes that is just the cost of doing business. You got to learn. So
I have a couple things to say here. So one of the first fake things I ever bought was two Supreme T-shirts and a Supreme bag at a garage sale for $5.
Oh yeah,
right?
You should have known, man.
I know, but you never know, right? There's those moments where you go and you buy something and you're like, I can't believe I scored this, and it's legit, right? So I was willing to lose the $5. That's the first thing I will say. Be willing to take a risk. You might think it's fake, but maybe it's real, and if the cost is low enough, it may be worth the risk. It was worth the risk for me. I did not know it was fake until somebody bought it. And they said, hey, can you check the collar and can you check the tag? If you put a black light on the tag or something, it was some kind of thing. If you do this, it's real, it's fake. And sure enough, like when I did all that and then I did some research, it was fake. So I learned how to spot a fake. That was the lesson I paid for. But the other side of it is sometimes, and I'm going to actually talk about this in my hustle of the week. You pick up an item and you solicit on eBay, and you will get all these people that are like, it's fake, it's garbage, I can't believe you're selling this, I'm going to report you. Get all this hate, right? I've had this happen so many times. And then it sells, and somebody gets it, and there's no problem, right? The item was either A, wasn't fake, or B, the person really didn't care, right? I believe if you do your due diligence, and you research everything, and you... I would say you can have a little bit of doubt. You can leave the 1-2% of doubt that maybe it's fake. But if everything is telling you it's real, then it's real, right? Who's gonna challenge you? The worst that happens, somebody gets it, they're like, it's not real, I'm gonna return it. So I've had that too. For example, North Face. Like I always tell people, like, you will not buy something fake unless it's something that would be made in mass quantity, right? Like Louis Vuitton bags and Chanel and Gucci stuff, right? But like something super particular, like somebody's not going to fake that, right? And I remember, I've had North Face jackets, I've had other kind of jackets and other kinds of clothing items. People buy and they're like, oh, this is so fake. And I would ask them, like, how do you know it's fake? They're like, oh, you can tell the feel and just the way and the colors are. And I'm like, all right, well, if it's fake, then just send it back. No big deal. I'll refund you and we're good. And I've never had a problem with it. And then, a month later, I sell it to somebody else and it's not a big deal, right? I never will sell anything fake, right, knowing that it's fake. But if I've done my due diligence and I've researched it and I've done everything possible to authenticate it, then I'm going to sell it. And I don't know, the Scotty Cameron, if you had like one person on Facebook say that's fake, I would probably do a little more research. Right, he's in the Discord, and we do have a golf expert. We have Keola in there, who deals with golf clubs all the time, and I'll email Don and let him know to run it by him because I think he would have a better idea. Because sometimes people, I have found this out. There are other sellers that will call your stuff fake to get you to pull down your listings, and I've seen it happen because I've seen like feedback, and they're like, oh, this person they accuse all these people of selling fake stuff, but they sell the same stuff. And other times, it may be people that are trying to just get your item removed or get you to sell it for cheaper because you start doubting yourself. Again, if you do your due diligence, just list it. All right. Hustle of the week now. I needed to get that off my chest for some reason. Okay, hustle of the week. I recently purchased a Richway Biomat 2000 for $39.99 and sold it on eBay for $899 free ship. Do you mind looking that up, Mike, while I read this? See what is a Richway Biomat? I don't know what that is. Okay, then also recently purchased a Paramobile T. It's like a wheelchair for $40 and listed it for $999 on eBay. I received an offer of $750, and the buyer told me I could keep the wheels and seat cushion. The seat cushion alone was a $300 to $400 cushion, J Fusion, and I've relisted the wheels alone for $140. Wow, that's crazy. So $40 to $750 on the wheelchair, and then $40 to $900 on the Biomat, and then you have parts from the wheelchair that you can still sell for another $400 to $500. That is a crazy hustle of the week, Don. I appreciate you sharing. All right,
you ready to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay,
what is
so
it?
a Biomat. So here's from their website here. Experience the profound benefits of detoxification, rapid healing, and natural pain relief with Richway Amethyst Biomat. There are many limitations, but only the Biomat uses certified natural crystals. So basically, it's like a mat that you lay on, and they even have controllers for them. It sends like electricity through it. So, yeah, man. There's people who buy this stuff.
I guess if you believe in that, you believe in that. You know, hey, if it helps you, it helps you. I guess. Interesting. That's it's funny because I have sold stuff like that before, and it's just like this is like. Remember those books? Didn't you have books one time, Mike, that you sold, or somebody had like these weird, like healing remedy books?
That was one of our listeners, yeah.
And it sold for good money, so you just never know. So, all right, well, hey, thanks so much. Also known as the salty_thrifter_SD on Instagram. Appreciate you, Don, and hopefully we run into each other outsourcing here in San Diego. All right, Mike.
Our next one comes from Flip for More on Instagram, which is one of our frequent hustles of the week from back in the early days of our podcast. So, picked up a lot of 17 t-shirts at the store that shall not be named. Dun, dun, dun. That's Goodwill, by the way, if people don't know. Paid $5.79 each, so a total of $98.43. Sold one for $40, but decided to lot the remaining to move them faster. So sold a lot of 17 Hanes Beefy Tee blank white extra large single stitch plain white t-shirts for $380 plus shipping. Man, nothing like a plain white t-shirt.
I'm telling you, it's better quality. So this is our Pure Hustle t-shirt, which is top quality, but on an everyday, I wear those Hanes Beefy Tee shirts, like from like the 90s and 2000s, because they're just quality, like they're just good shirts, and like I will pay. I mean, I'm not gonna pay that money for them, but I will pay like $20, right? And I buy it all the time. So Flip for More saw value where others didn't, right? Would you pick up a bunch of white T-shirts? I think I would just pass those up.
No, I mean, yeah, I probably would have passed them up. But yeah, knowing. You got to know, right? Like if you know they're old, you know that they're quality. Now, if I were to see some Hanes Beefies, I might be picking up some Beefies. You know.
Okay. Just sounds all right. Okay, all right, Mike. What's your hustle of the week?
So mine is an eBay arbitrage. I'm not going to say the exact field it's in. I'm going to say the brand is Whiz Kids, and Whiz Kids makes. Actually a ton of different like miniature figures. The popular ones are Hero Clicks, Mage Knight, Mech Warrior, and the only one that's still kind of going is actually I think there may be some more like Star Wars ones and stuff now, but Hero Clicks are the only ones that are kind of still that people can buy. But back in the day, you used to be able to buy Mage Knight figures, you used to be able to buy Mech Warrior. And the cool thing with these is you could buy them in like a blister box, and the blister box would come with like for instance, if you were doing Mech Warrior, it would come with like one big mech and then maybe one vehicle and then like 2 or 3 infantrymen. And they were cool because the figures, they weren't the best quality miniature figures, But you could buy a handful of these booster packs, get on the table and start playing a tabletop miniature game, as opposed to something like Warhammer 40K, where you're going to be spending $500 minimum for an army to play, and that's just for your pieces. And then the other person you're playing has to have spent the same amount. So if me and you wanted to play some Warhammer, we're looking at like probably $1,000 unless we bought like a small little. So it's a lot of money. So people would buy these. They'd buy these Mech Warriors or other things. And the cool thing was they were the reason they were called clicks is on the bottom of them they have like where you can shift. So every time you got hit, you would just click the thing over and the stats would change. So and until it would show that it was dead. And so I used to have a ton of Mech Warriors and Mage Knight when I was a kid. So I knew a little bit about some of the rarities on some of them. And it's one of those niches that I don't get into a lot. I don't sell a ton of these things, but every once in a while I look to see if there's lots of them for cheap, because I'm like, man, it'd be cool if I could buy some of these for my kids to play with. They're a cheap way to play some tabletop games. And I happened to find one that was a lot of these figures, and I saw a super rare one in there. And so I picked up this lot for under $20, and I'm going to be able to sell just this one for like close to 100. And then there's a couple others in there that I should be able to sell for like $10 a piece. And then I could probably just keep the rest of them and have them to play with my kid. Or I could lot them all together and probably sell them for pretty close to the same amount that I bought them for. So almost free when it's all said and done.
You know, I love picking up those kind of things. I haven't found Warhammer in a long time, but you know, because people know, like when they have Warhammer, they know what it's worth. So it's very
Warhammer is not one you're going to be able to pick up.
But I picked it at the thrift store. Even at the thrift store, it's very hard. But the times I did pick them up, definitely great returns on the Warhammer.
Well, and if you do pick up Warhammer, and I know what you've picked up Warhammer in the past because I picked up some too, is not the Warhammer 40K, but it's the Warhammer like the old school, like the where it's more like orcs and goblins, and so they're not like the more modern mech ones. The 40K is the one that most people play, and it's the one that's still kind of going with the company. Okay. But yeah, even if you pick up there's other brands too, like War Master, they have a lot that are pretty valuable. You got to find something that people play. Warhammer is the one, even though it's stupid expensive, it's one that people consistently play. Other games like BattleTech are pretty cool. You can actually get figures cheaper. There's some other games, but the hard thing is anywhere you go, you can pretty much go to any city and there's going to be a Warhammer 40K group. So it's almost worth getting into and putting the money into it because it's a game that just keeps going. So if you can find Warhammer, yeah, for sure, pick up Warhammer 40K. You'll make a killing.
Huh. Okay. All right. I love my hustle of the week, and I love it because I got so much hate for it. So 2 years ago, I went to an estate sale, and at this estate sale, I made a killing. I spent like, I don't know, $180, but I bought so much stuff. I mean, I sold a set of Nancy Drew books for like $200 to $300. I sold some other item. I mean, I made a killing on it. Well, there's this one item that for whatever reason, it got whoever like was following my store. Maybe it's one of you listeners too. I think one of them is. I think they even have their own YouTube channel. Would always comment like because I would and then so similar. And it would repost it, right? So it would come up fresh on somebody's feed or something. And it was this HarleyDavidson cast iron figure, right? So it was, about yay tall, a few inches, like maybe 6 to 8 inches tall. Just like, it was a motorcycle with two people riding on it. And on the side, it said HD, right? And it looked kind of vintage, right? And it was in a house of somebody who was a Harley collector. So they had a bunch of Harley items. So my thoughts are, okay, chances that, this isn't Harley are pretty slim, right? Because this person's a Harley collector. They're not going to go and buy something fake. And this thing didn't have any any identifiers, right? It didn't say HarleyDavidson on the bottom. It didn't say what year. And so I'm like, all right, it has kind of a vintage look. It's cast iron. It's heavy. I'm just going to list it as vintage or HarleyDavidson. Vintage figures on HarleyDavidson bike or something like that. And I just posted it, right? Man, right away, like, this is Chinese trash. This is junk. You should know. What are you doing posting this? I had people saying like, you're clearly trying to deceive people. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't respond to crazy, okay? I get crazy messages all the time. I'm not going to deal with crazy. I don't ever deal with crazy. So I kind of just ignored those. And, for 2 years I dealt with this. And the crazy one was like people are like, don't you see that there's Phillips head screws and that's not vintage? I'm like, what? Phillips head screwdrivers have been around for over 20 years. It's not like something that is super brand new. And I'm not telling you it's an antique. I'm just saying it's vintage, meaning maybe it was bought before 2024, right? I mean 2004, right? 20 years. Well, it finally sold. I paid, I don't know, I think I paid like $20 at the most for it. And it sold for $140 plus ship. And it's a happy buyer, and I'm glad to sell it. And again, I always tell people this. Don't worry about the haters in your messages. Sometimes you may get a valid person that really knows what they're talking about. But generally, if they're valid, they're not a jerk, right? They'll say, hey, just want to give you a heads up. Take a look at this, blah, blah, blah. Somebody comes out attacking, to me, I'm going to dismiss them. I'm not going to waste my time with them. So I was very happy. That was my hustle of the week because I was like, you know what? I'm glad I sold it. So, hey, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Flip, for more. Thank you, Don. Thanks so much, Salad Sauce from Discord, for sharing your hustle of the week. If you ever want to share hustle of the week again, you can shoot us an email at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. You can always give us a call, 619-738-1170. You could shoot us a DM. We are on social media. We are Pure Hustle Podcast on all platforms, except we are Pure Hustle Cast on Twitter. DMs, though, get flooded, so it's very hard for us to get back to DMs. So I would say email is your best route. And as always, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you're listening to a podcast, come on over and subscribe. Hit that bell notification so you always catch our lives or our random episodes. If you haven't yet signed up not yet signed up, but haven't left us a review and you enjoy the podcast, go on over to iTunes. Tell everybody why you love Pierre's podcast, and please leave us a 5-star review. My goal is to get us to, I think, 800 or 900 reviews. I forget where we're at. And to get back to 4. I would love to get back to 5.0. I don't know if that's possible, but 4.9, because we're back at 4.8. Okay. And last of all, if you haven't yet checked out our Patreon, which gives you access to the Discord, it's super affordable, $5.55 a month. Okay, that's less than a steak and egg and cheese bagel at McDonald's. That's less than a Frappuccino. That's less than probably any item you'll pick up at the thrift store. Okay, so maybe we need to raise our prices. I don't know. But $5.55 a month gets you access to a Discord full of resellers in the Pure Soul community, from Amazon arbitrage to retail arbitrage on eBay, to people that are vintage sellers, art sellers, storage unit buyers, all different kinds. Great info. Listen, $5.55 a month for all the information you're going to get is well worth it. So make sure to sign up. Go to patreon.com/purehustle podcast, or go to the link below, patreon.com/purehustle podcast for $5.55 a month.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Let's talk about eBay's new direction. Now, this is not new, but I really do think eBay is continuing to push for you to sell internationally. And it's easy, right? Would you say it's the most easiest thing you can do on eBay?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing you can do, but it's definitely easy, especially when you're doing listings. You can just click the little slider button like, hey, I want to do international, and it gives you a ton of options, right? You can pick many different options to choose from, and it shows you what the estimated price of shipping is going to be for the various options that you can choose from. So they definitely have made it easier than in the past, where it was kind of just like a guessing game if you're selling international, unless you were using the global shipping program. If you're using GSP, then it was relatively easy in the past. But they made just the normal international much easier. I still am convinced, though, that the international shipping is not going to be for your everyday bread and butter items. These are going to be for your higher end items. So if you're listing things under $20, it's probably not worth putting it as international. And I mean, it doesn't take that much more time.
Somebody get paid $50 shipping? Is that what you're saying?
Right, exactly. But if it's a high-end collectible item, in fact, a lot of the items that I look up, there's times where I want things and it's like it's only shipping from France, or it's only shipping from Germany or Japan or wherever. So or the UK. So there are certain things that it's like it's hard to find, and so if you're the only one selling it and nobody in the UK or nobody in France or nobody is selling those items, they might be stuck buying from you. But again, they're only going to do that if it's worth their time. They're not going to be spending $50 in shipping on an item that's listed for $20 unless they're very well off or desperate.
I've had it
but yeah,
happen.
for your higher end items, it's worth it for sure.
Now I want to add a little bit to that, because if you you can actually go to policies and you can set up like international shipping on everything, and then you never even have to worry about it. You don't have to toggle anything. It automatically, everything that you list goes international all the time. And so I don't think I've ever touched anything to say go international or not. Here's the other reason I say eBay is going in this direction. eBay, when I think it was like maybe 4 updates ago, maybe not this winter update, but like the last winter update in 2022, they had discussed the idea that like, hey, if you sell something internationally, okay, eBay will take care of the return for you. Meaning that if somebody gets something, unless it's a clear INAD, if they get something and somebody wants to return it, that you don't have to take the return, that eBay will actually eat the cost and you will not lose any money. And eBay has come through on that. I even had one was like I sold to manga and good old item specifics. I forgot to put that it was Japanese language instead of English. And so the person thought they were getting something English and it was Japanese. And they're like, oh, well, what do I do? I'm like, well, when you get it, you can return it, I guess. And sure enough, they tried and eBay was just like, no, here you go. Here's your refund. And that's it. Got my money. I didn't lose any money. And they've been doing this for a while. And I do think another reason that eBay will continue to push, and I encourage everyone, if you're new, if you're somebody that's been selling for years, if you are not doing eBay international shipping, you are leaving tons of money on the table. I get great sales all the time. It's really easy. You get it signed up, whether it's through policies or you toggle it, whatever you do, and it'll just say, hey, ship to this place in Illinois, ship to this place in California, whatever, and your shipping is as if you're shipping domestically, and eBay takes care of the rest of it. And so I think since eBay has kept it the way it is now, if eBay does a 180 and they begin to say, well, we did this beta run, and now if somebody wants to return something regardless of the reason, we'll allow the return, and you will have to refund them the shipping and refund them the item, then I think that's for time to go, well, I don't know if eBay really is all in on international shipping, but I think eBay makes a killing on international shipping. I've seen, I've had people screenshot me and send me the fees that they pay, and it's some crazy fees that people end up paying because they got to pay the import fee, they got to pay some extra eBay fees, all this is different stuff. But again, if you have not been selling international on eBay, I encourage you to do so. eBay wants you to do so. And I truly believe eBay will push your items higher in search when people from other countries are looking, especially if you're under eBay's international selling program. All right, this next one, Mike, I put this on here, but I am like 50-50 on this one, but I do think we're going in that direction. Do you think messaging is going to become more important on eBay based on all the changes that they've made?
I don't know. I think there's other platforms that have a more social media aspect to it. Okay. I think there's the normal algorithm aspect of if somebody messages you, you need to message them back. You're probably going to be penalized in the algorithm if you're not responding to customers. It's bad customer service. But I don't know if I see eBay moving towards the route of like, say, Facebook Marketplace, where you're doing like negotiations, tons of negotiations over messages, and that just kind of being the norm. So I can't imagine them pushing it in that sense. But I do think we live in a time now where people are used to text messages. I mean, just think about like generationally, there's some people probably your age and older who prefer to phone call.
Call me on the phone.
And then there's people my age and younger who are like, please don't call me. I don't want to talk to you on the phone. Just send me a text.
It's true about Mike. Mike will text me paragraphs before he ever calls me.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And he doesn't even text paragraphs.
So all that being said, I think that there may just be more of a user base coming on that's more likely to send messages than in the past. But I don't know if that's going to be important as far as the eBay's change of direction.
I don't know.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that they're going to do what like OfferUp and all these other sites, like where it says responds within an hour, responds in a day, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it tells you how quickly people. I think eBay may introduce that at some point in time. I think right now they're not pushing it because I ignore people all the time and I still get sales that come through. But I do believe, if eBay is very big about resolving things with the buyer, eBay is very big on customer service, as they should be. I do think it will play a role. So I would just get used to responding to people, make templates, get comfortable being uncomfortable, responding to people, because I do think it's going to play a bigger role, especially as they try to separate themselves from other platforms that have taken greater market share. All right, this next one, I think this is going to be controversial, but I do think eBay is going to want people to promote their stores. I really do. And we kind of talked about that already, but eBay's gotten a ton of revenue off of promoted listings, and it's the reason that eBay continues to make money. It's the reason that eBay continues to have a stock. Their stock, I think, in the last year went up $20, right? It was like a few months ago, it was at 40-something. Then it went up to 60, okay? And it's because eBay is seen as a company that is making revenue, and that revenue ends up coming from promoted listings. So I think now that they've set up their promoted listings on items, I think they're going to start pushing more on their stores. Okay, yeah. Okay, so eBay stock. Okay, 3 months ago, let's see. Let's go a year ago. A year ago, it was at $40 a year ago. Not $40. Now it's at $66.87. Are you invested in eBay, Mike?
No.
I was at some point in time. I wish I stayed, but it also took a year to get there. So, anyways, all right. So be aware that again, it's pay to play. It's just pay to play. And if eBay is pushing stores, I think it's really important. All right, what do you think about the last point here, Mike?
So the last point we have here is social media will become even more important. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think about back when we went to the eBay Open and the way they kind of talked about wanting to have almost a social platform on eBay where people could come in and there could be like articles and people writing articles about comic books, and then you can from the articles click on links and then find postings and listings. And I don't know. I feel like eBay needs to figure out the social media game, and they need to revamp their site a little bit. Now, I don't want a Temu type site, right? Like, I don't want it to be like all games and like spin like this wheel and get this percent off. Yeah, I don't want that. I think that would be ridiculous. But I also think that the reason why eBay keeps losing market share to other platforms is because they just aren't innovating. And so I would like to see them figure out the social media aspect to an extent, but at the same time, I just don't want them to do it poorly, right? Like, I went to a church years and years ago, like just a visit, and I grew up singing hymns. You know, that was how I grew up. The church I go to now, it's almost all hymns and psalms. And so I'm totally fine with old classic, Christian music. And then there are churches that have more modern Christian music. But I went to one church where they took they tried to take modern music, but they were trying to sing it like they were still hymns. And so they were trying to be hip and relevant, but it just came off wrong. And it's like, you got to do one or the other, right? Like, you got to be in your lane. You can't try and sing the new songs in the old hymn format. And I almost feel like if eBay pushes social media, if they don't do it right, they could be like that, where it's almost like the out of touch, what's the meme of, is it Steve Buscemi or whatever? And he's like what's up, bros? And he's got the skateboard and he's got the hat. So that's almost what I feel like. Like, they could try the social media and do it poorly. And so that worries me.
I think we're in the in-between phase. I do think eBay is pushing it more, because how many, I would say, workshops, how many times does eBay posts about like, share this on Instagram, share this on Facebook, share this on social media. And I remember in the eBay ads event, they were really pushing the ease it was to put your listings out there on social media. And so I think it's going to have, it may be a part. I'm not 100% sure. This is why we left this towards the end. Those of us that stayed with us to the end, very much appreciate you. But I do think there has to be some kind of social media presence. Just get started, have your store on there. But it may be good for eBay. And if it doesn't work for eBay, in the end, it still brings more eyes to your items. So we'll just have to wait and see. But, eBay is definitely changing. It's going in a new direction. We're always going to have to adapt if we want to be successful as resellers. I'm talking to myself because I myself have gone through, a season of things haven't been great. And I want to say part of it is I haven't been willing to accept eBay's new direction. But now I'm kind of switching gears and trying to switch that up to be and continue to be successful on eBay. So with that being said, thank you everyone for joining us. Make sure to hit that like button. And as always, make sure to be real.
Be relevant.
And be reselling.
Peace.